Sometimes when relationships fail, we can look back at the signs that it was doomed. But why do we ignore those red flags in the first place? We welcome registered psychologist Lisa Rowbottom for more on this. First of all, I guess it's sort of a common phrase now, but how do we define red flags?
So when I'm talking with my clients about red flags, I really define them as those you absolutely know this is the end of the relationship. So there's something about it or about what has happened that tells you this is not something you're willing to tolerate. It's not one of those things where it's, I'm not sure if I really like this about him, maybe he snores or those sorts of things. It's more things that tell you there's something really wrong here and you need to get out.
But we can recognize those in some ways, but place them aside or think we can overcome them. Why do we do that, and what happens when we do ignore the red flags?
I think there's a couple of reasons why we do it. When we meet somebody that we're attracted to for the first couple of months, we get this really explosion of feel-good hormones in our body, and so we get what we call puppy love, where everything's great and this person's amazing and you overlook all of their flaws. And it becomes very easy to pretend certain things aren't happening or to have a habit of explaining them away. Or we also can fall into this role of we can save this person. If we just love them enough,
Sure.
If we just put enough effort into them, this can be better.
So ignoring them, though, what happens to us and to the relationship if we just push those aside?
If they're red flags, but they're relatively harmless red flags, then the relationship usually is pretty doomed to end after a certain amount of time because of, say, personality conflict. If they're pretty major red flags, then you can find yourself in an abusive relationship.
Yeah, so the consequences here can get pretty dire. Now, there are times when family members or friends can also see this happening and they try to step in. Does that help the situation? Because sometimes there's this inclination to try to prove them wrong or something like that. What happens when people interject?
So I think if you're the family member, it is important to say something.
Right.
You don't have to push it. You don't have to bring it up every time the person is around because you don't want to alienate that person. But at a certain point, you do want to mention, maybe you're seeing some things that are concerning. If you're the person in the relationship and your family member or your friend is telling you, be careful, I'm noticing some things I'm worried about, it's really important to take that step back and just look at the situation and think, well, why would they tell me this? Because it's pretty unlikely somebody who's genuinely a friend or loving family member is going to try and interfere in your relationship just for the heck of it.
Yes, exactly. Okay, and really quickly before we go, do you have any advice for breaking this pattern, for recognizing this and taking healthy action?
I think the first thing I would do is sit down and actually give some thought to, okay, so what are your red flags? What are your yellow flags? What are your green flags? So your green is, absolutely go for it. Your yellow are the things that are well, I'm not 100% sure. They're not dangerous. So for example, like the snoring or, maybe you're not 100% sold in the sense of humor, those
Sure. sorts
of things. And then make a list of your absolute red flags. So things you've run into in past relationships, things that your friends have run into, things that you just know from overall education. So for example, it can be as straightforward as, if he hits me, then I'm gone.
Right. Right. Very good advice. As always, Lisa, we appreciate your time this morning. An important conversation to have. For more about Lisa and Sojourn Psychology, you can visit sojo.ca.